Welcome to www.theaustraliantest.com, your trusted resource for Australian Citizenship Test preparation with 12 years of experience. In this video, we will present 20 unique multiple-choice questions drawn directly from the official guide, Australian Citizenship, Our Common Bond. Each question comes with a detailed explanation to enhance your understanding. Please do not skip and watch continuously for the best learning experience. Do not forget to share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Let's get started. Question 1. When are people free to share and follow different beliefs and traditions in Australian democratic society? Option A, only if they adopt Australian traditions. Option B, as long as they do not break Australian laws. Option C, only in private settings. Option D, only if their beliefs are officially recognised. The correct answer is as long as they do not break Australian laws. Explanation: people come to settle in Australia from countries all around the world. Many people have a different cultural heritage with different beliefs and traditions. In our democratic society, we are all free to follow and share these beliefs and traditions as long as they do not break Australian laws. Question 2. What is true about freedom of speech and expression in Australia? Option A, freedom of expression is limited to certain groups. Option B, only government-approved speech is allowed. Option C, freedom of speech only applies in private settings. Option D, it's a core value and should be respected for all. The correct answer is it's a core value and should be respected for all. Explanation: we must also respect other people's freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Question 3. As an Australian citizen, what must you do? Option A, obey the law. Option B, not obey the law. Option C, not serve on a jury if called to do so. Option D, only defend Australia if you want to. The correct answer is obey the law. As an Australian citizen, you must obey the law, vote in federal and state or territory elections, and in a referendum, defend Australia should the need arise, serve on a jury if called to do so. Question 4. At what age can Australian citizens seek election to Parliament at the federal, state or territory level? Option A, 20 years. Option B, 25 years. Option C, 22 years. Option D, 18 years. The correct answer is 18 years. Explanation: Australian citizens aged 18 years or over can seek election to Parliament at the federal, state or territory level. It is both an honour and a serious responsibility to serve in an Australian Parliament. Question 5. What do Australians reject as a means of changing minds or laws? Option A, peaceful negotiations. Option B, violence. Option C, democratic voting. Option D, public debates. The correct answer is violence. Explanation: the Australian Citizenship Our Common Bond clearly states we reject violence as a way to change a person's mind or the law. Question 6. What enables people to exercise freedom of speech? Option A, not discussing their ideas with others. Option B, the ability to discuss their ideas with others. Option C, living peacefully without discussing their ideas. Option D, only discussing ideas approved by the government. The correct answer is the ability to discuss their ideas with others. Explanation: freedom of speech allows people to say and write what they think and to discuss their ideas with others. Question 7. What is true about equality in Australia regarding personal choices? Option A, only men have the right to make independent choices about personal matters. Option B, Only women have the right to make independent choices about personal matters. Option A, both women and men have the right to make independent choices about personal matters. Option D, personal choices are regulated by the government for all citizens. The correct answer is both women and men have the right to make independent choices about personal matters. Explanation: both men and women have the right to make their own dependent choices about personal matters such as marriage and are protected by the law from intimidation or violence. Question 8. What is an important right and responsibility that all Australian citizens have? Option A, travelling. Option B, teaching. Option C, voting. Option D, owning property. The correct answer is voting. Explanation: voting is both an important right and responsibility for all Australian citizens. Question 9. What is true about Australian citizens returning to Australia after travelling overseas? Option A. An Australian citizen is not allowed to go out of Australia. Option B. An Australian citizen is free to return to Australia after travelling overseas. Option C. An Australian citizen is not allowed to go out of Australia until the age of 18. Option D. An Australian citizen needs a visa to return to Australia after travelling overseas. The correct answer is an Australian citizen is free to return to Australia after travelling overseas. Explanation: as an Australian citizen, you are free to travel overseas and return to Australia. You do not need a visa to come back to Australia. Question 10. What is true about the protection of Australians under the law? Option A, Australia's laws protect only the senior citizens of Australia. Option B, Australia's laws protect only the people born in Australia. Option C, all Australians have the right to be protected by Australia's laws. Option D, Australia's laws only protect government officials. The correct answer is all Australians have the right to be protected by Australia's laws. Explanation: all Australians are protected by our laws and legal systems. Australians recognise the importance of laws in maintaining a peaceful and orderly society. Under the rule of law, all Australians are equal in relation to the law and no person or group is above the law. In Australia, everybody should obey the law and not break it at any time, otherwise you will face penalties. You should follow the law even if no one is watching. Question 11. How can people express their views through freedom of expression? Option A, express their views through art. Option B, only express government-approved views. Option C, harm others in the name of expression. Option D, express views that incite violence. The correct answer is express their views through art. Explanation: freedom of expression means people can express their views, including through art, film, music, and literature. People are free to meet in public or private places for social or political discussion. Question 12. What is true about equality in education and employment in Australia? Option A, access to education and employment is provided only to women. Option B, access to education and employment is provided only to men. Option C, equal access to education and employment is provided to both men and women. Option D, access to education and employment is based on social status. The correct answer is equal access to education and employment is provided to both men and women. Explanation: men and women have equal rights in Australia and should be provided equality of opportunity to pursue their goals and interests. Both men and women have equal access to education and employment, can vote at elections, stand for parliament, join the Australian Defence Force and the police force, and are treated equally in courts of law. Question 13. How can Australians contribute to the future of Australia in terms of how the country is governed? Option A, by voting for the existing government. Option B, by voting for the people who represent them in Parliament. Option C, by voting for themselves. Option D, by abstaining from voting. The correct answer is by voting for the people who represent them in Parliament. Explanation: it is a responsibility for Australian citizens aged 18 years or over to vote in federal and state or territory elections and in a referendum, which is a vote to change the Australian Constitution. By doing this, Australian citizens have a say in how Australia is governed and contribute to its future. Question 14. What is the minimum age to apply for a career in the Navy? Option A, 18 years. Option B, 21 years. Option C, 15 years. Option D, 25 years. The correct answer is 18 years. Explanation: the minimum age to apply for a career in the Australian Navy is 18 years. Question 15. Who has to obey Australia's laws? Option A, only Parliament members. Option B, only people born in Australia. Option C, everyone in Australia. Option D, only lawyers. The correct answer is everyone in Australia. Explanation: all people, including citizens and the government, are bound by the law. Everyone in Australia, including the Prime Minister, is bound by all Australian laws under the rule of law. Question 16. What is true about freedom of speech in Australia? Option A, people can harm others. Option B, people cannot speak and write what they think. Option C, people are allowed to speak and write what they think. Option D, people can only express government-approved ideas. The correct answer is people are allowed to speak and write what they think. Explanation: freedom of speech is a core Australian value and underpins our democratic system. Freedom of speech means people can say and write what they think and discuss their ideas with others. Question 17. What is true about voting and contesting for Parliament in Australia? Option A, voting and contesting for Parliament is the right of only women. Option B, voting and contesting for Parliament is the right of only men. Option C, voting and contesting for Parliament is the right of both women and men. Option D, voting and contesting for Parliament is restricted to certain social classes. The correct answer is voting and contesting for Parliament is the right of both women and men. Explanation: men and women have equal rights in Australia and should be provided equality of opportunity to pursue their goals and interests. Both men and women have equal access to education and employment, can vote at elections, stand for Parliament, join the Australian Defence Force and the Police Force, and are treated equally in courts of law. Question 18. What is the responsibility for Australian citizens aged 18 years or over? Option A, mandatory military service. Option B, voting in federal and state or territory elections and in referendums. Option C, running for political office. Option D, paying additional taxes. The correct answer is voting in federal and state or territory elections and in referendums. Explanation: it is a responsibility for Australian citizens aged 18 years or over to vote in federal and state or territory elections and in a referendum, which is a vote to change the Australian Constitution. By doing this, Australian citizens have a say in how Australia is governed and contribute to its future. Question 19. What is the minimum age to apply for a career in the Air Force? Option A, 18 years. Option B, 20 years. Option C, 21 years. Option D, 23 years. The correct answer is 18 years. Explanation: the minimum age to apply for a career in the Australian Air Force is 18 years. Question 20. What is the primary reason Australia encourages citizens to actively participate in society? Option A, to increase government revenue through community organisations. Option B, to reduce the workload of paid government employees. Option C, to give citizens the responsibility and privilege of shaping Australia's future. Option D, to promote Australian culture internationally. The correct answer is to give citizens the responsibility and privilege of shaping Australia's future. Explanation: Australia encourages active citizenship to give citizens the responsibility and privilege of shaping the country's future. While all options may be beneficial outcomes of active citizenship, the primary focus is on empowering citizens to play a role in determining Australia's direction. Thanks for watching. We hope you answered all the questions correctly and this practice test helped you prepare for your Australian Citizenship Test. Remember to check out www.theaustraliantest.com for more free resources and practice tests. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more helpful content. Good luck on your journey to Australian citizenship.